See, like yama means to control, like pranayam. It means to control the prana.
Yes.
So you're trying to discipline yourself, yama.
Yama is to get control or have control, or, and is it the word control for you? Was that the word you use?
Control or regulate.
Regulate.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have issues with control.
With control, yeah.
Yeah, and like the word control, because control is bad. Like, is they're trying to control life.
But what about control yourself?
Yeah, and controlling your mind.
Yeah.
You have a mind, and if it's out of control,
That's a
that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. Is understanding how your mind works, what's going on there, why it's happening, and then the reasons why you need to get control of it. If you're not in control of your mind. And that's exactly the point that we're making. If we don't realize, as a simple example, if we don't realize that we're being violent, with ourselves and with others, then how could you ever be in control of it? And it's coming from somewhere, and currently it's automated. There's so much stuff that's in a human being that's automated. It's not under your, we feel guilty and we feel bad about it, but you really shouldn't, because it's not under your control. So how can you, it's like, being upset about that it's raining today and that's somehow your fault. It's really that silly. The difference is you can't control, it's your fault you're upset. You can't control the weather at the end of the day, as far as I know. But as in regards to being able to get in control of your mind, is something that you can do and that you're responsible for. You're responsible for or accountable for getting control of your mind, but you're not responsible for your human condition. You didn't, that came with the package. That came when you got here. You were socialized by your world, and none of that, and by your parents and the situation. So you don't have to feel responsible for that, but you are accountable about what you do about that. Okay, so niyama is, and the yamas and the niyamas are the do's and don'ts, is the simple way to actually say that. So the first one talking about, and I say
Anamai.
anamaya. How would you pronounce it?
Well, in Bengali they'll say anamoi.
Anamoi.
They always round everything off.
Okay.
But anamai is fine.
So it has, like all Sanskrit, there's a lot of different interpretations of how to pronounce. So, anamai or anamoi. Okay, so and what does that relate to? Since the in the manual, the first three limbs all relate to the anamaya. So what is the anamaya?
Well, it relates to what's a Maslow's pyramid hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
So it starts with the Brilla at the bottom, Anamai, and then Pranamai, Manamai, or Gyanamai it's also called, and then Vijnanamai and Anandamai. So Anamai is really the basic foundation that you're lying. So it's more external. For example, people who are on the Anamai platform, they'll just be interested in eating. That's their thing.
Yeah.
That's their goal. That's what they need. So in relation to the
To the
Ashtanga
lady-
yoga process, it's you're just laying still the foundation
Yes.
for practicing yoga, actually, for the meditation that's still to come.
So using your analogy of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is the bottom of the bottom need in the pyramid is survival needs.
Yeah.
So it's very basic needs. It's the very beginning of what it is that you need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Like having a roof, having food, having
Exactly.
water. So
And with relating to the Ashtanga, you're basically adopting a certain lifestyle. You're doing certain things. You're not doing other things. For example, you're supposed to live in the forest.
okay.
You're supposed to only wear tree bark, and you live from fruits and roots, and you're completely celibate, and you're not really mingling with society. So these are like more external things. And when you get to asana, you're also only doing like physical postures, although they're also having a metaphysical effect, but the focus is still on the body. The focus is still more external. And when you get to the pranayam, then it gets more metaphysical.
Okay.
And the pranayam, it relates to the pranamoi kosha.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in Ashtanga, these are the most basic needs. You're starting to get yourself ready for, aligned for greater. You're virtually preparing the soil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you look at the niyama principles, you have saucha, which is cleanliness, which means externally you take a bath twice a day,
Okay.
and internally it means that you're keeping your thoughts clean.
Give me an example of clean thoughts.
clean thoughts would be that you, and this is building up on the principles you've adopted in the Yama,
Yes.
in the previous, by not thinking violently. So now externally, so you could also say it has some relation to ahimsa, for example,
Yes.
where now you've stopped your external violence, but now internally you also need to purify those remnants of violence that's within us.
Okay, so do you see that as an inner outer? So the yama, I'll call it judgment, just violence.
Yeah.
So if that when you're speaking of a himsa or himsa is violence or judgment to the outer world.
Yeah.
Do you see that specifically to that, or could it be both?
Well, in terms, ahimsa is internal and external.
Yes,
But
okay.
the Saucha principle, where it's related to ahimsa, would be more internal.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
actually does. It's a new step.
Yeah.
So you start with the external, and then you work your way
Exactly.
onto the internal.
And then Saucha would also be related more internally to brahmacharya, where even you're not just like abstaining, but internally you're also giving up any like lusty thoughts. And even you're giving up that attachment in the heart to it. So it's not just not having sex anymore, it's actually in the heart. One needs to give up the desire. So that's also to do with cleanliness. And there are
Okay.
also these principles which one adopts. For example, there's these 4 regulative principles where one doesn't gamble, one doesn't take any intoxications, one doesn't engage in illicit sex, or eat any meat, because and the Saucha principle relates to sex life,
Yes.
where unregulated sex life is actually it contaminates the mind and the heart.
Yes.
So Saucha relates to that. So, and also you could look at it in terms of Saucha and truthfulness. So then Saucha, this purity also has the sense of truthfulness to it also, that internally clean state of mind,
Being
clean
tru-
heart, and then being truthful and unbiased.
Being truthful to yourself.
Yes.
Obviously, being truthful to those around you. But you've already separated yourself from society in a monk type scenario. Is that you've separated yourself from society and that you're living in the most extreme situations of applying Ashtanga. You're living in the forest and you're living away from society. And are you on your own generally, or
Yeah,
can you
more or
be in a
less.
small community?
There's usually the yogis, they do it by themselves, but they do have meetings with other yogis, because you do need association of other spiritual practitioners.
Yes.
In any yoga system, you don't just cup it by yourself, like solo. You need the support from like-minded individuals.
Support, some kind of relationship, conversation,
Yeah.
and also you can learn.
Yeah.
It's easier. There becomes a point when you're on your own that it's you can only learn so much on your own. You need not everything. My words would be is that nothing happens in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You actually have to have other stimulus to actually have things come up as well, so that you can go, on your own, there's a lot of stuff that isn't going to come up. But as soon as you get into society, there's all kinds of things that are going to come up. Or a small society in the sense of other yogis. Okay, so cleanliness and purity of internally. So this is generally the food that you put in,
Yeah.
and the thoughts that you hold and focus on.
And you could even see more esoterically as also what the type of energy you have around you. Like if you have a good clean energy, you can contain your space nicely, which also kind of eventually, it should be a natural consequence of it,
Yes.
of living a pure lifestyle.
That's the expression or a symptom of.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I would say, how do you pronounce that?
Saucha.
Yeah, I would say Saucha as well. So then moving on to contentment, I say Santosha. What would you say?
Yeah, Santosh or Santosha.
Santosh or Santosha? Okay, and then the contentment is, in my experience, is just being happy with that you're in the forest, and being happy with your own company, and being happy with clean thoughts, and being able to have the discipline to having contentment with discipline. Can be a problem sometimes. You're constantly working.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that actually goes into that. You're constantly watching yourself, constantly watching what's going on. So being content with that. Is there anything else that you would add to that about contentment?
It's actually absolutely vital to be content.
Yes.
Because if you're hankering for something or you're lamenting about something, then it distracts you from,
You just used the word hankering.
yeah.
Not very many South Africans use that word. I actually like that. That's a North American word.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so if you're having a hankering for something that that I don't have, that whatever desire that is of something that isn't around you currently, then you're going to be distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also you think that what you need is outside of you, but everything you need is within.
Mm. So
Like
then
you
once
have
again,
the-
chasing desires of some kind.
Yes.
And everything that you truly need is, some sustenance and everything that's inside of you and what's in this moment. Okay. Anything else about contentment?
I think the reason why we're not content is because we tend to rely too much on the interpretation that the mind gives us of reality. So we're seeing that something is hot or something is cold, and I like this and I don't like that. So actually, the function of the mind is said it's just sankalpa, vikalpa, to accept and reject. And all the stimulus are coming from the senses, and the mind is saying, I like this, I don't like that. And it's all basically like a mental concoction. Like
Yes.
it's very hot today, so a cold shower is very desirable.
Yes.
But in the winter, you jump in that same temperature shower, and then your experience is opposite.
Yes.
So it's basically due to sense perception, where we are experiencing things like happiness and distress. And it says that one who wants to be a yogi must learn to tolerate these dualities and not become disturbed by them. So that way, being content.
Like, and that brings up for me the constant, because of how we see the world and how it should be, how the mind thinks it should be.
Yeah.
Then we're running to pleasures and running away from things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So do you have names for those things?
I don't know what you call that.
No, that's fine.
Well, sukha dukkha means happiness and distress.
Okay.
So it says that actually, in this world, everybody is always trying to increase the situation of happiness and reduce the situation of suffering.
Yes.
And they act according to that. But it's actually a fact that one is happy as long as one doesn't try to be happy.
Yeah.
And as soon as your activities for happiness begins, then your situation of distress arises.
Yes. It's kind of like when you see poor communities, in the world. You go to, and that some of these people have very, very little. On the Maslow's hierarchy of their needs being fulfilled, they might have a roof and they might have a little bit of food, and that they're some of the happiest people that you'll ever meet, and authentic and real. And some of the people that are the most affluent are the least happy people.
Yeah.
They're not in the moment. They're running from, there's a very hectic schedule of going from one place to another with this big desires of, the next level of achievement and receiving of something from the outside that has, and this gratification that they get from it, which doesn't last very long. It's just constantly being on this treadmill of trying to acquire more and get somewhere and be somebody. Okay. Tapas. That's how I would say that, and
Yeah.
I'd say it with a Spanish accent. So
Tapas.
yeah. So how do you say it?
Tapas also.
Oh, same. Okay.
Tapas.
So austerity, persistence, perseverance in one's purpose. Literal meaning is to blaze or burn. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, austerity is, in Vedic society, human life is meant for austerity. And austerity
What
means
life is?
human life.
Human life.
Yeah, it's not just meant to act like cats and dogs and just running after impulses.
Yes.
That one is actually supposed to aim for something higher. So austerity is unavoidable if you want to attain anything. Like if you're studying for a degree, it's austere to wake up and to study for the test and make the time. So you have to put in the time. You have to put in the hours, the austerities. If you want to make a relationship work, then you have to perform some austerities. So in this case, austerities is basically by living away from people and by living very simply. That is an austerity. But what it does is it solidifies your determination and your intent for being on this path, and also it gives you the necessary mental fortitude to push through.
So it's kind of a combination of discipline and doing with less.
Discipline,
doing with the
yeah,
least.
discipline, doing with less, but also voluntarily accepting hardships for the benefits that you can get from it.
And speak about that.
That
The benefits is that, what is the benefit? Like, I understand that, the discipline of being able to, I understand if you don't have the discipline and you don't have the focus, and if you're not, for example, invested in the truth of how things are, like we spoke about earlier, if you're more interested in about, if this is the truth, I can't look at that because I'm going to lose a whole bunch of things in my life that I want. So, if I just avoid the truth so that I can continue living the way that I want to. I don't think that's austere. So, What else do you?
So it can be austere to actually confront yourself with the truth, because it can be very painful to have to give up certain ideas that you hold dear.
Yes.
So that can be austere.
Yes.
Or it can be very austere to avoid associating with certain kinds of people. Sometimes one might realize that certain friends in your group are maybe not the best kind of influence, but you have some attachment for them, but you realize that I need to actually move away from this association because they're kind of not having that positive influence. And that can be austere.
Yes.
Or it can be austere.
It's kind of doing without.
In a way, sometimes it's doing without, but also sometimes it's doing more.
Well, no, it see the illusion is that you're doing without, but what you're getting is that the benefit is definitely more so. But you actually, when you're making those choices, oftentimes all you see is the austerity of it, what you have to give up. You haven't got the benefits yet. You know, somebody's telling you, oh, there's benefits here, and you might have a sense of it even that's what's has you driving it. But sometimes you have to give up of things to be able to get the real rewards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you start taking cold showers in the morning, it's very austere.
Yes. Do you do that?
Sometimes.
Okay, so not all the time.
All the time.
Okay.
But after a lot of time, if you do it for a few weeks, you'll definitely feel your mind is much more powerful, and you're able to do what you need to do without being disturbed by external impetus.
Interesting.
Like when it becomes cold, you won't freak out about it. You still feel cold.
Yeah.
But it won't be a cause
It's
of
not a
suffering.
surprise. It's not such a big reality. You change. You're prepared for it. You've actually been able to center yourself around that having that experience, that it's not entirely comfortable, and you're fine with it. As opposed to somebody that's lives in a lot of luxury. If they had to live in slightly less luxury, they might be upset. They suffer.
Yeah.
It's like these people, but it's never ending. You hear the stories of people that they can't sleep on a bed unless it has 17,000 threads. They talk about the threads in particular bedding on the sheets, and if they don't have a minimum of 1,500 threads per square whatever it is, then they can't sleep. That's how, and that's what I found is the more that you actually feed these desires of what it is of luxury, that it becomes a new norm, and you're no longer, it's a luxury, and then there's the desire wants 1,700 sheets, and it wants threads, and it keeps wanting more to be able to get the same level of perceived satisfaction. As opposed to the other way around, is when you live very simply and functionally and with utility, that you're not put out by all these things. You're getting fed by something else, which is more internal and connected to the whole.
Yeah. Yeah, and with austerity, partaking in intoxicants is actually the opposite of austerity, and that spoils that principle of austerity. By just drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes or ganja or anything that intoxicates you.
Okay, so all intoxications. Yes, I get that. So there's a liberty there. In regards specifically to the literal meaning of being blazed or burned, does that live for you? Do you in your
Yeah. Sometimes giving up attachment, you feel a burning in your chest. It's like a hot rod going in. It's like your girlfriend breaks up with you, your boyfriend, and it's like, or your car gets stolen or gets scratched. You feel it like a burn inside you. And it's like a purification.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I also felt that I was feeling it more like purpose. I was feeling like kind of that what burns for you in regards to passion. And it kind of is a similar experience, but it's a more happy one. That there's a burning with that. Do you have the same affiliation, or is yours more of the austerity side?
Well, if your vision is purified enough, you can experience ecstasy directly.
Yes.
But in the beginning stages, it's not so evident.
Yeah, it's not so much of a burn.
Yeah.
It's more pleasant than that. It's as intense. It can be as intense, but it's not, and I guess it can be like when you balance or harmonize that energy, it's no longer a burn, but it can be quite enjoyable.
Yeah. And it said that in terms of the gunas, three gunas,
Yes.
Sattva, Raja, Tamas, goodness, passion, ignorance, that activities in the mode of goodness in Sattva, they appear to be like poison in the beginning, but nectar at the end. And in the mode of passion, in Rajas, it's the opposite. There's like nectar in the beginning and poison at the end. And in Tamas, in ignorance, it's poison in the beginning, poison in the end.
Yes.
And you're completely ignorant of the fact that it's poison.
Yeah, tell me with Raja how it's that it feels like nectar in the beginning and poison in the end. Like what
Easy
specifically
example,
with
it's
Raja?
like you go binging and then you have a hangover the
Oh,
next
okay.
day.
Just because of the
Yeah. Or even if you don't get the hangover, but you do it a lot, then you get liver disease or liver failure.
okay, the great highs
Yeah.
and the great lows. The great
Or you're
highs
like
and the
very
great lows.
promiscuous and you get some STDs, or you get an unwanted child, and also the emotional damage which comes from it subtly.
Okay. What
Yeah.
is the connection with the gunas and Raja for me is the king. So how are those two things related? That confused me hugely.
In this way, Raja doesn't mean king. It
Yeah,
just means,
I get that.
Yeah.
So what does it mean? Why did they use Raja?
It's just because the kings they're in the mode of passion.
Okay.
Yeah, the priestly intellectual class, they're in mode of goodness in sattva, and then the leaders they in raja. So they need to do things hands on in this world, politics and arrange and planning and all these things, which is typical raja
Energy.
Energy, and then
But then there has to be well, for lack of a better word at the moment, a good way to do it, and then there's the negative
Yeah,
side to
yeah.
Raja.
yeah, it can either pull you up to sattva or it can pull you down.
Okay,
to tamas.
good. See, that's the
Yeah.
thing. See, nobody's made that distinction for me before.
Yeah. It's
So-
like you can use raja and you clean up your messy room, but you're using it away and then you're introducing sattva in your room.
Yes.
But you can use raja, and then instead of doing that, you can just try and satisfy all these unlimited desires that are coming in, and that will pull you down into tamas. You start
Yes.
getting frustrated, and you start getting angry, and when you act on that anger-
rushing around, doing a lot of stuff, maybe taking in a lot of, food or some spicy food. It's an extreme, and then moving to tamas is where you've wore yourself out.
Yeah.
Now there's a rushing that can be in Raja, rushing from one place to another, kind of like our society is today.
Yeah.
Rushing from one place to another, pleasing ourselves with wine and spicy food and not sleeping enough, etc., etc.
And you end up unsatisfied, and then you become depressed.
And then we're in tamas.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. So then, self-study. Pronounce it?
Swadhyay. Swadhyay.
Swadhyay.
Or Swadhyaya if you want.
Okay. Self-study and study of the scriptures.
So it's reflection, but also because in Ashtanga Yoga it's a Vedic process. So then they're studying the Vedas.
Tell me a quick overview of the Vedas.
Phew. Veda. That's a big one.
I
Man.
know.
I can just have a whole week's worth of discussion.
And
just
we
with
will,
Vedas.
just not now.
Yeah. Veda literally means knowledge, but it also means that which is knowable,
Mm-hmm.
and everything which can be understood is constituted in the Vedas and actually part of the Vedas, and they're found in there. So traditionally, the Vedas are transmitted orally, audibly.
Yes.
So there are no books because these individuals, they were able to actually utilize the full capacity of their mind. So they had perfect memory. They were known as Shruti Dar. Shruti means sound or to hear, and Shruti Dars means like hearing once and you never forget.
And pronounce it slower again. So.
Shruti Dar.
Thank you.
Shruti Dar.
Now,
So-
I was actually speaking in regards to the Vedas is that at this part, like we're preparing the soil for.
Yeah.
So in this part of niyamas, is there any
Oh.
Vedas that's kind of like the starting point, or
Well,
that
so
you
then-
should be reading
so
here?
part of the Vedas would be the Patanjali Sutras.
Yes.
Which would be part of the Vedas. Part of the Vedas would be the Upanishads. So while you're doing this, you should accumulate knowledge about what is the difference between matter and spirit, what's the difference between my body, my astral body, and me, the soul,
Yes.
and what is the difference between me and source, and what's the relationship between all these different energies. Because I'm seeing myself here, the spiritual being, I'm seeing here Prakriti, I'm seeing the material energy, and I'm seeing source. And what is the relationship between these two, and how do they interact, and how is the one coming from the other.
Sure.
So this is philosophy, and these things you find in the Upanishads, which are the philosophical portions of the Vedas.
Yes.
So you're supposed to be studying the Upanishads, and also you're performing some kind of rituals also, which you also find in the Upanishads, particularly like the Rig Veda, for example.
Tell me about that.
The Rig Veda is just a portion where they have more scientific information.
What's the ritual though, or the?
Oh, it's depending on what you want to achieve.
Yeah, which one?
Different yogis want to
Tell me the
attain-
one that you chose.
the one that I chose.
Yeah, the first one.
Oh,
What was the ritual that you were attracted to begin with?
Well, I'm not performing the rituals in the Rig Veda.
In the beginning,
Yeah.
none of them.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so going back to the sutras,
Mm.
you know, there are a lot of sutras, and they're somehow broken up into 108 um, sections within the subsections. I think
Yeah.
there's 4 sections of the sutras, where there's 55
Which
in
sutra is this?
the
Patanjali.
yes.
Mhm.
So most people in yogic philosophy at this level are focusing on the first 6 sutras. So how does that sit with you? What stands out for you? As somebody that's just starting with the niyamas, what should they be looking at in the sutras? Is it whatever comes, that their teacher brings to them? Is it what jumps out for them? How did you?
I think they should make a systematic study of the sutras, beginning by the beginning and then gradually going through.
Okay, so
Because
start at the beginning and just keep reading.
I'm not so familiar. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And then also you have to reflect on it a lot, and you have to discuss it with your peers, and because in that way you're kind of getting different realizations, and then also obviously apply the principles, because you want to actually attain some kind of realization, not just accumulate theoretical knowledge.
Okay. So then, in regards to surrendering to oneness or to God, Ishvara,
Pranitana or Pranitana.
Prandihana.
Pranitana.
Okay, say it again.
Ishvara Pranitana.
Okay, I pronounce that differently, so we might
Yeah.
have to check the spelling of that since it is phonetic.
Ishvara means the supreme controller. That's why they say oneness or God,
Okay.
the supreme controller. And then Pranidhana means, like to offer oneself.
Yes.
So one can also see that as meaning, like this word surrender, which is I guess the closest English word you have to what Pranidhana means, is that you are offering yourself to the source. So you're not living for your own independent existence anymore. You could say you want to cooperate with the universal laws and with the universal movements.
So moving away from your mind, and because you are something.
Yes.
So you were created with a particular something in mind, and that in spite of that, our human condition has got us, focused on our mind and societal needs and those kinds of things that aren't really what our purpose is, and really conceal what we truly are. So in surrendering to the oneness is, I guess you'd already have to know what the oneness is, believe in the oneness, and then see yourself as part of that oneness.
Exactly.
So, and then the surrendering to it is, which is kind of funny to me, surrendering to something, you were creation created you as part of oneness, individual expression of the whole. So, and then surrendering to that just means that you're really aligning yourself with the purpose of, who you truly are and what you truly are and what creation is and your part in it. Would you agree with those?
Yeah, I do.
So what?
But then again, that ties also with the self-study, that this idea that you have of oneness or of God or source can just be something that you pull out of your own mind. So because this is a Vedic thing, so you should study the Vedic literatures
Yes.
and the philosophies and understand it and come to a proper conclusion of what source is,
And to help me with that?
what that is.
Yeah.
That's also a whole other level.
Yes, but is there anything you can
Serious.
say about that? Because I didn't learn it through the Vedas. I learned it through another way. So there are other readings and there's other places that you can find that, but I don't know what proper is. When you say it.
Oh, I see.
So
because there are different schools in the Vedic culture,
Yes.
and they're not necessarily agreeing on
Yes.
what that ultimate conclusion
that's
is.
why we're having this conversation, by the way, is because
Yeah.
there are so many interpretations of all of this work.
Yeah.
And that I particularly like yours, and it's clear and it's clean and it's as empirical as one can make it. So, or just the fact that you want it to be empirical is amazing to me. So that really is why we're having the conversation. Is I want people to be able to, those in our yoga course, that they can see the landscape of how people interpret this, and that so that they can feel out for themselves what's true for them, and be able to have some variety to be able to think and feel and go, oh, is it more like this for me or is it more like that for me? Okay, so is there anything you want to say about surrendering to oneness, or an insight for you when you got it, or anything that you want to say about that, just to be able to give people that's a tough one for people.
It is.
So anything you can say just to kind of shed a little bit of light on. I know it's a tough question, but
Yeah, the yogi, they do what they need to do, but they don't endeavor very much, even for things that they need. They're depending on the supreme will to supply whatever they need.
so
So
law
this
of
is
attraction. What I need is going to come to me.
Yes,
Okay, and
but it's a very high level of applying that.
yes,
Where you're sitting in the forest, and then somehow you need to get what you're going to eat,
yes,
and then these things can come. Either you find something, or some person comes by,
or
but something
a
happens.
rabbit
that...
falls out of a tree.
It's like, like on the stake.
That's pretty good. That's high level there.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right,
So that also entails a complete release of control, or wanting to control anything,
and the way I would
and
say that
depending on the supreme will.
the ego, just the opposite of that, the ego thinks that there's just me against the world or me against the universe, and I have to strategize and think about it and do it with my own two hands, or nothing's going to happen
Yeah.
because nobody's working with me. Is kind of the opposite to that.
Yeah.
And that's the maya, or the illusion, that we have to work through to come to those conclusions.
Yeah, actually, people who apply this principle really well, they appear to be very crazy to so-called normal people,
Uh-huh.
because from their perspective of like normal, so-called normal people, they appear to be very irresponsible, careless, and also lack of vision.
Uh-huh.
But actually, because they're so much intimately connected to source,
Yes.
they're depending on source for everything.
So they don't have to rely on all
Yeah.
those systems.
Exactly.
Because they're inferior systems, number one, and number two is because they appear that way is what allows them, because they're not invested in that way and creating walls and barriers and things they need to get over and beliefs that they have. They just let go and allow and believe that creation is going to bring to them what they need,
And it works.
and it works. Well,
Yeah. And then you get people who try to sentimentally apply this, and then it doesn't work.
yes,
Because they're not actually connected to source.
Yes.
It's just like externally they
it
have.
becomes a wish.
Yes.
Yeah,
So then that's the warning.
very clear. Okay, anything else we want to say about the niyamas?
I think that more or less summarizes it.
Okay, thank you very much.